Christopher Armitage, everybody.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, a veteran and a great thinker, and you just bring a skill set to so much of what you talk about and what you do, and it's really exciting to get into some of it. So, again, Toppling Tyrants is the book, a field guide to removing fascism in America and taking it all back. You're giving the book away, which is just a super cool move, and I'm going to talk about the book in a second. But one of the things that really jumped out at me was something in your Substack and something that you've spoken of, to be fair, for quite some time. And it's related to healthcare and it's related to insurance and these things that have always been a super big issue for me when it comes to Americans and what is sort of forced down our throats. So I want to start there and then I'll get to the book. Give me the idea that you have and how to roll it out. One of the things I like about what you do is you talk about, it's not just an academic idea. It's here's the rollout. Here's the how-to of what we can, from a policy standpoint and from a logistical standpoint, actually implement. So talk to me about healthcare in America and insurance companies and the way around it.
Well, one of the things I like to talk about is how my approach towards policy or lawmaking is not rooted in some, progressivism inherently or anything like that. To me, I'm just looking for the solution. And when you look at the facts of it, the most fiscally responsible and effective way to handle our healthcare would be to say, okay, well, the largest employer in most states very often is the state government. We're talking about 11 million people in blue state governments alone, and considerably up to tens of millions when you're adding in their families. Now, right now, you're looking about a 20% overhead that's going towards yachts and CEO bonuses to hire middlemen. Those states say, cool, here's a company and you're going to negotiate with providers or with the direct providers. So right now, states could save money. It wouldn't be an implementation cost. It would be instant savings to just say we are going to be our own insurance company, our own insurance provider. The state will be negotiating directly and have considerable leverage with every single healthcare provider in the state. First, we're going to do that for our employees and their families. And as soon as we have that running smoothly, then we can open it up as a public option for the entire state. And nobody has to feel like, oh no, my choice is disappearing. Instead, it's the opportunity for everybody to just have a better alternative that if the private sector doesn't want to compete effectively, then I guess they get competed out of the market.
It is something that has always stood out to me, that the insurance companies are middlemen. They are just a layer that is jacking up costs. And even with the Affordable Care Act, there was sort of a forced sit down with the insurance companies. They had to be connected to this negotiation, and no one was saying why.
Yeah, and every single blue state right now could do this. Vermont had their own little experiment with expanding the caregiving that they were providing, but it was tied to Medicare and Medicaid, and so it required a congressional authorization. This is currently, what I'm describing here, just the state saying we will be our own insurance provider, is legal. It does not require congressional authorization. And it very quickly is able to save states that are, pretty much every state has its own little budget crisis. It can actually be done in a way as well where you control rates based on people's income. So it could be a non-tax revenue stream. And that word scares a lot of people. I'm not really into a fan of the boxes of politics like left, right, center. But there's a lot of people out there who are in that ACA camp who say, okay, the way that government should handle things if we want to help people is to say, we want to help people, but we need to make sure corporations profit because they're the ones who fund our campaign. And so they're creating institutional guards that just extract unnecessary wealth and create poor public policy that does a bad job.
Yeah, exactly. And some of these things to which you've referred are sort of entrenched to the point that one wonders if you can get traction. You are, I don't want to call you an influencer, but I think you are in the public intellectual space. And I'm wondering if you've gotten buy-in, if you've been able to get this off the launch pad in some way.
Absolutely. So part of the work that I've been doing over the last few months, thanks to people who buy merchandise off the website or contribute on buymeacoffee.com/the ER or contribute on Substack, that money's been used to facilitate me and some people from our team going to different states and meeting with state representatives. And in the next week, we should be launching an Existentialist Republic PAC. And the mission of that is and that I've been doing, is bring model legislation that fits into the oppositional federalism and soft secession frameworks of public policy that empower states to use states' rights instead of using states' rights for racism, has been tradition in America, to now use it to protect reproductive rights and constitutional rights that we have, and our economic security, and to fight corruption. And so there's been really great success. Now it's mostly coming from state House members. And there's this really interesting thing that's happened as I've brought this legislation and seen who's more or less enthusiastic. Is first of all, you meet with the activists, you meet with the organizers, and they're here for it. You also start to get some of the donor class on. Even some people who have money are like, wow, this is great, I support it. Especially the things that are more about fighting corruption than necessarily taking money out of private corporations' pockets. The enthusiasm's there, but it comes from the bottom up. And so those state house members are all about it, and in multiple state houses over the next few months, you're going to see some of the bills that me and my crew we propose and that we've built. And then there's some state Senate members who are also interested in it. You're going to see those bills coming. We've also got our own, our members and readers are actively sending this out to all 3,240-ish Democrat state representatives in the country. And we're going to find more of them who are excited to bring this stuff for votes. And part of what we're hoping to do is bring attention to those people who are ready to show courage and actually fight back with the power we have and help them earn votes and win elections.
Yeah, that's the groundswell you need. And again, there'll be links to the Existentialist Republic, and you'll be able to, it's so easy. That's one of the things that you've done, is kind of provided a how to get the word out and to get some traction. And when you say it's going to happen from the bottom up, the reason for that is?
Well, there's the most courage I've found is always in that direction. In democracy, you're never going to find a representative who is more courageous or ambitious than the public demands. Truly, that is just the nature of it, is they're always going to play it safer than what they think is going to earn them or lose them votes. And that math is how you win elections. It just politicians are a biological organism, and they're going to say, okay, this helps me get elected, reelected, whatever, or it hurts it. And so sticking your neck out there on something that could earn you the ire of a fascist regime, or even of just your donors, that takes a lot of other incentive structures to make it feel worth it. Like, we're changing the calculus, we're making it clear. And especially when you talk about the bottom levels, a state house member, you can actually sway them with moral arguments or with logical arguments, because most people don't know the name of their state house representative. Your state house representative might just be a public school teacher who stepped up, and they're doing the job. And if you just show that you're going to be an enthusiastic person who will drop off signs for them in the drop off hundreds of signs to people who want yard signs, that helps them win. So you do, like, we all have a great degree of influence the further down in that ladder that you go. And I mean, I want to make something really clear here, because I haven't told this to folks, but I think we're about 3 to 5 years, probably closer to 5, from actually righting this ship. And it's going to be an ugly 3 to 5 years, and the work is still going to be the same. But when it's over, although we won't be a world power anymore, I do think that we will be a more democratic and just nation than we've ever been. Sorry to go off topic, but I wanted to mention it.
Well, I love that, because we're frankly looking at sort of grim times, and I think it's nice to hear someone who's really in the trenches saying, hey, we'll get to a better place, but it's just going to be a grim few years. So that brings me to your book, and it brings me to the clear march to tyranny that we have seen. And the book is Toppling Tyrants, a field guide to removing fascism in America and taking it all back. And one of the things you've done, first of all, you've made the book available for free, effectively. I mean, I got it and threw you some money, and I think, your Substack. You can generate money off of that, et cetera. And I think my audience will do similarly. But speak to me about what's in the book, because once again, it is a how-to. It's not just a statement of how bad things are.
Yeah, the book is available for free as a PDF that you can download buymeacoffee.com/the ER. It covers, a lot of Erica Chenoweth's work, including some of the things after their research that was about how it's actually more than 3.5% now. And also, gosh, you look at the different nonviolent protest tactics and where they've been applied in different countries. You look at how the information environment has become more sophisticated over the last few years. Synthesizing that research into actionable, tailored information for the United States as it exists that looks at the strengths that we have actually to protect us against total fascism and authoritarianism, winning permanently. Synthesizing all of that is the work of that book. And it goes over like the 5 different levers of power that can influence politicians. I tried to apply as much cognitive psychology to it because there's incentive for the powers that be to make it seem that they are uninfluenceable by the average person. And really, all of us have power. We have influence in a literal sense. We can impact the world around us. We can impact the behavior of politicians, but it's a matter of learning how to harness that influence, build it, develop it, and focus on being process oriented rather than outcome oriented, which that psychological shift is just as important as the tactics. The self-fulfilling prophecy is a real thing, that if we approach any task with this mindset that we're screwed and there's no point, etc., that makes that the more likely outcome. But we need to do some of the work psychologically too, to realize that if we just go into it with a good attitude and just because your senator, your US House member, whoever, they didn't email you back, that doesn't mean it's done. They never respond to my emails. Cool, you have another data point that you're able to apply. Why don't we try DMing them on every different social media platform? We'll take 5 minutes a day to do that. Now, why don't we try sending them a letter? Why don't we try getting 3 friends together and showing up at their office and trying to schedule a meeting and not being confrontational about it, but showing up with facts? And everything's a data point. We are all these researchers as activists, and we can build an identity as an activist because that's a much more powerful way, not just to influence your behavior, but to help ground yourself as someone who is worthy of admiration. That when we look back in the history books and we look at fascism and autocracy and we admire those people who fought back, well, congratulations, we are those people.
I just love the way in which a lot of what you say feels doable and inspirational. I mean, that's really a cool thing, especially as times seem to get darker. I wonder if you can just, in our little time together, put some more specifics on things, because you do talk about these levers of power and the ways in which we can do different things in different areas and actually affect change. Can you speak to a couple of others?
Absolutely. And so some of these I just want to mention are included in booklets that you can get for free or purchase as physical booklets. Again, buymeacoffee.com/the ER for the free stuff. And if you want to purchase stuff, it's at theexistentialistrepublic.com.
And again, all those links are under this video. Go ahead.
And so the main influence strategy that we promote at the Existentialist Republic is distributed activism. The idea that you can be an effective activist of one. Part of how that was formed was from me doing exit interviews for activist organizations informally, which I think more activist organizations need to do. And also talking to the people who signed up to be a part of an activist organization, but that weren't doing anything, which oftentimes is 95% of your organizations. I've sat down with groups that have 4,500 members on paper, but the same 200 people show up to everything. And so those exit interviews and those inaction conversations, the main reasons that I heard that people weren't getting involved in stepping up was that they showed up with a lot of enthusiasm, and then they felt that there was gatekeeping, one, just personality conflicts, that kind of thing. Anyone who's tried to join a county Democrat party has definitely dealt with those. And two, that they felt it was, they have 5 meetings so that they could do one thing. So that, wasted energy And really, it's like we need to have 5 activist events for every one meeting that we have. Flip that over. So the educate, activate, recruit, repeat model for distributed activism is in the books and the booklets. And it's the idea that, one, you educate yourself on what effective activism looks like. That means being you have to, as an individual, be a researcher. Okay, well, I'm going to try out different ways every single day to contact a representative at the lowest level possible with a specific demand. I'm going to see, if I can get a hold of their donors, or if I can influence people's willingness to engage with them. For example, you're allowed to get the donor information for different politicians in pretty much every state and across for all federal offices. So even if you can't donate to a politician, if you can do the legwork or join with a group that can do the legwork, you can find out who contributes to them, and you are legally allowed to call those donors and talk to them about, like, hey, why this person's a Democrat? Why are they voting to fund ICE? And you can't tell them who to vote for. You can't say, hey, I think you should vote for someone else, but you are allowed to take them to task on that. And you can do it for Republicans too. Because remember, influencing isn't just getting them to vote the way you want. Influencing could just be ruining their day or making them get angry phone calls from constituents. That takes up their staff's bandwidth. It takes up their bandwidth. It takes an emotional toll on them. It uses resources that they could be using to do a fascism. Instead, they're using those resources to think, God, every time I walk out of my office, there's this person yelling at me. But you're on a public sidewalk. You're allowed to yell at them. Maybe that's your Saturday activity. Maybe every Sunday you get together for a game night with the friends. You say, we're going to do trivia and we're going to send mean emails to Ted Cruz, whatever your thing is. And so that's the idea.
I also think that one of the sobering things about your writings is associated with the fact that it's stuff that's really well researched. In other words, you look at those things that have been successful in attacking authoritarian power, and you see these things in action. So in other words, you're applying those things that do work to your manual as to how to proceed.
Well, part of the work actually that makes the Toppling Tyrants book different than some of my other work is it's a more distilled version of what seems to be the thing about my approach that people respond to. There's people who, they think that I'm not an attorney. They think that, there's people who make that assumption. But the distillation of my work comes actually from studying the intelligence community and the 18 series within the U.S. Army, which is called the Green Berets Special Forces, and learning about how different intelligence communities and different groups influence community. During the Soviet Union, go back and read those manuals. And they had these manuals about how do you as an individual person disrupt the community that you're embedded in within the Soviet Union. How do you gum up the works and know that you're making a little bit of a difference? If you went in and not everybody who lived in Nazi Germany fought back by going out and getting arrested or something. There are great ways to gum up the works and know that you're making a difference in whatever way you're ready to. And that's part of the conversation I want people to have as well, is so many of these activist organizations who I love and they're out there doing the work, many of them are trying to move everyone to the same block of activity or the same 3 blocks of activity. And I want to tell people that, that help equip them. You can find and meet activism and effective activism where you are at. You don't need to join an organization. You don't need to start a 501c3. You don't have to show up and be in a big public place, and you can make a big difference. It's just, all of us get to be a little nudge, and some of us are stronger nudges than others, but enough nudges turn into shoves.
And the way you nudge is not always associated with leaving, painting a sign, going out on it. That's another thing that and I think you just touched on it. Like, you can, from your home, without ever having to go outside, you can do a lot. And it's exciting, though, that you lay it out in the way you do. So there is a link to your book, and you've mentioned Toppling Tyrants, and I'll mention it several times as well. But Toppling Tyrants, A Field Guide to Removing Fascism in America, is out now, by the way, and Taking It All Back, okay? Removing Fascism in America and Taking It All Back. Chris Armitage's latest. And again, it's free. It's downloadable for free, but you can leave stuff on, stuff meaning money, on Chris's website. And again, there'll be a link to the website under this video. Now, I will say in closing, I didn't think it was possible for me to like you more than I already do. But the fact that you have a cat, yes, exactly.
There's a few around here.
I love that. We are a big cat house here, and that makes you even more lovable, Chris. Now, look at this gorgeous orange guy. Is it a guy or a girl?
It's a guy. His name's Enron.
That is absolutely the best, man. Well, you've got friends here. Come back and visit again. And congratulations on everything, again, on the book and on continued success in making a difference. Thank you, Chris Armitage.
Thanks for having me. I look forward to coming back.
Okay. See you next time.
The Mark Thompson Show.